We see a beautiful building or a nice place, we always appreciate its architecture. It's the architect who brings glory and beauty to that place. But to become a successful architect, it requires a lot of study, a lot of knowledge, a lot of practice along with creativity. Today, we are honored to have a person who has delivered some great spectrum of projects and has been practicing this field for more than 10 years now. Let us quickly go and meet Mr. Atit Mistry. Let us understand his successful journey, and there are lot many things which are very useful for us which he will tell us in the field of architecture. So let's quickly go and meet Mr. Atit Mistry. Hi Atit, thanks a lot. Thanks for taking out time to come to for coming up in our show and our next episode of Design Icon. So Atit,
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for inviting me.
let me start with small questions which we normally ask in the start. Can you elaborate about your experiences? How this field of architecture you started? What was your inspiration? How did this field?
Yes, giving a small background of my family, that we have already three architects in our family. My father is an architect, my uncles are architects since three generations. So that is how I personally had some background in architecture and design. But as soon as I started preparing for the entrance exam, I decided that no, this is something that is interesting me more than regular the engineering field. So I started off with architecture from a very reputed college, that is Rachna Sansad's Academy of Architecture, and I am a 2008 pass out from the same college with a graduate degree in architecture, and then later on moved on to pursue post graduation from the same institute with my majors in environmental architecture. That is the green building architecture that we usually say these days. Then in 2014 is the time when I started my own practice as an independent architectural firm with my own team of designers. And then since then there has never been looking back.
That was really nice. So coming from the family which already have architects, is it always a consistent pressure on you to deliver best every time in your project?
Yes, there are always expectations. Coming from an architect's family, once you do a project and once you share the photographs in our amongst our family group and family members and all, so one would rather expect that you would get appreciation, but I would actually real time critics on it. That you could have done this thing better. What if you would have used that color? So that is always a healthy criticism that I receive from the family.
So Atit, architecture is a very wide discipline, and
Right.
when you have the projects or the kind of projects you do, are they more residential in nature or they are more commercial in nature? And what do you think is a current trend? Which kind of projects are more picking up, and where do the people feel more importance of architecture as such?
Currently, what we are practicing is we do about whatever projects we have in our portfolio and they're still in our hand. 80% of them are residential projects. The 20% comprises of about retail and commercial offices. So, and also the trend is always that for residential projects, people are more inclined to have a luxurious living standard, whereas the commercial project and the retail project, knowing what the real estate rates of commercial and retail spaces are. So people more and more are inclined to rent out spaces for commercial purposes. So when a person rents out, takes up a rented space in commercial premises, then he has his own target, that he has a particular budget to invest into that particular project or in that particular office or retail space. So any normal client would always prefer to live in a luxurious surrounding, or would rather like to keep his family at home in a luxurious surrounding rather than spending more in his commercial premises. So that is the current trend right now. as far as comparison between residential and commercial or retail is concerned.
So Atit, you are a very known person into this field. You are a very experienced person into this field. You are an architect as well. We have a very large audience in which there are a younger generation as well. And when it comes to interior design, especially in terms of residential, interior designers as a profession and architecture as a profession, what do you feel are the similarities and where are they different in terms of studies and in terms of discipline as such?
See, when you talk about interior designing and architecture broadly, see, there is always a misconception in general public purview that it's both of them are the same. Certain times when we started off in architecture in our college, and when we used to tell other friends of ours that what I'm going to do architecture, it's a 5-year course, so they used to always confuse it with civil engineering, for that matter, that architecture is as same as civil engineering, whereas it is not. A civil engineer doesn't have that required finesse for the aesthetic point of view, from the aesthetic point of view. So what happens is that in architecture, an architect always gets trained as a civil engineer, but he is also given that particular finesse or the sixth sense to add aesthetic to his particular creation. For example, you would say that there are many flyovers that are built, but there are very few flyovers which has an aesthetic value to it. For example, a Bandra Worli seating can be an aesthetically pleasing structure also, but it is a civil engineering feat. So also we have to see to it that where there is a certain amount of aesthetic sense, influxed into a particular structure, then it becomes beautiful and it becomes well thought of for its own purpose. So when the particular structure is well thought of, is well designed, is beautiful, and it's pleasing to look at, then the particular transcends into some other, then the particular structure transcends into some other space. So that is the zone where we call it as architecture. Okay. In other terms, when we talk about architecture in comparison with interior designing, interior designing is always an offshoot of architecture under the broad umbrella. So
basically interior designing
in architecture, obviously we are always trained to do interior designing. It is. But there are many passionate people, or passionate students who want to pursue interior designing as a field on its own. So when they are so focused that, what, I want to do interior designing only, then they pursue that particular subject. But when it comes to architecture, in architecture, once you enroll into the architecture, once you become an architect at the end of 5 years, you have many different avenues open to yourself. First of all would be interior designing. The second would be town planning. Third would be structure design, building design, bungalow design. Fourth would be municipal licensing approvals. Fifth would be structural designs. So you get to choose your own area of expertise once you pass out from a college being an architect. Also, an architect gets a valid license to practice across India that is issued by the Council of Architecture, Delhi. So whatever you design, whatever you certify holds some value in the market, basically. And the same can be applied to interior designing. It is a known fact that many architects in the initial days of their career, they start off with interior designing as their main, focus area. And then when they gain experience and expertise in that area, clients develop their trust on that particular architect and his design capabilities, execution capabilities, and then they perform really well as architects to design their bungalows or buildings and other public infrastructure also.
Now you have a very known established company of your own. So you have evolved as an individual and now you're running a company. What have been your 3 main philosophies to continuously evolve into an expert what you are today?
When we started off into architecture, when we were in our architecture college, there used to be a time when the architect used to dictate, the design terms to the client, that if I am hired as an architect, this is the design philosophy that I would follow. I mean, these are the design elements that I follow and which are always there in my designs. So that used to be an era where the architects used to dictate to the clients that, if you want to hire me, I'm going to use this particular material only because that defines my design statement. In today's world, actually, the client is much more smarter and much more well traveled. He is very well versed with the current global themes, which are changing every single day. So when a client approaches an architect, he always has a concept or a notion in his mind that what is his dream house going to look like, or what is the theme that he wants to use in his particular project. So as an architect, my job or my philosophy of practice is to understand what he requires, to understand the kind of look that he wants, and not to be too imposing on a particular client that no, this will not look good, you have to do this is what it is. Instead of that, what we do at our office is we try and understand what his concept is. We try and ask him that why this particular concept he wants to pursue. That is what we do. And these particular clients that we cater to, they have we have done projects right from a luxurious 2 BHK to up to 8 BHKs also in Mumbai, in Ahmedabad, across Pune. We have done a couple of projects in Ahmedabad also. So accordingly, also from region to region, city to city, the concepts, the clientele, the mentality of a client, the budget of the client also keeps on changing. So we have to keep on evolving our philosophies and our concepts in tandem with the clients that we are dealing with.
Okay. So, Atit, you have worked across different segments, be it on the residential, on some premium flats and premium properties, and similarly on the commercial sector as well, from a large scale project to some medium level projects as well. So, what have been like? What are the underlying concerns of any client? Are they the same?
See, first of all, the most important concern of any client is the use of material. They are always concerned that whether or not I'll be getting the material that has been assured to me by the architect. I mean, when we prepare our designs, we always give them a list of specifications and the material list to which the contractor has to adhere, and to see to it that the same particular material is used on the site for execution. So that is the most important concern. The second biggest concern of today's client is timely delivery. Any project which goes into time delays, or which goes on for at least for 2 months beyond the delivered beyond the promised date, the client always has to face enough hardships for that, because it is very difficult to convince the client in today's scenario to accept such kind of delays. And the third most concern of the client is that ultimately, after executing a particular project, is my house or is my commercial premise or retail premises going to look good? Now that is a very vaguely put sense, because it's just a very generic question that मेरा घर अच्छा लगेगा कि नहीं लगेगा, basically. But for anyone who will be visiting that premises, it is a very subjective matter. It can look good to someone else, it cannot look good to someone other person who is visiting that premises.
Okay, so that's really a thoughtful thing, that with the three keywords what we are getting here. First is the quality of workmanship and the material, second is the timeline, and third is obviously the aesthetic part. With that, Atit, I am coming to the next question. How do you make sure that the end product, obviously it's a very big responsibility on your shoulders. So how you make sure that your projects goes into a smooth way and projects turns out to be successful? Does it start with a important data gathering and requirement gathering, and what is your approach? How do you make sure that phase is really taken in a very, very good way?
So what we definitely do at the end of at the initial part of the project is that we make a list of fact checks. So the fact check says that we write down the family's requirement, or the family's habits, or their family's lifestyle. That what is it? Are they into software industries, or do they travel a lot, or are they foodies, or what is their particular kind of a lifestyle? Do they work from home, or do they travel a lot to their office? What are their weekend plans, or do they have their friends coming in or guests coming in. So these are the multiple factors that dictate the particular requirement of a space. So when we get into the detailing part of it, when we understand the concept of what their thinking is or what their requirement is, then we start jotting down their lifestyle requirements also, that whether they want a small gymnasium in their home, whether they are fitness freaks, or do they do baking at home. I mean, there are many spouses who do baking at home. So there can be a different activity list for each and every member. For example, for one of the clients that we have done, the son practices badminton, so he has his entire badminton kit that he has to cater to for storage. He has about 12 to 13 rackets and other accessories that he has to store somewhere. So accordingly, a list is prepared for each and every member and what are his concerns for the same. And we always see to it that for that particular space, or for that particular person, we see to it that that space is made or designed in consultation with him only.
If you can help our audience, if you can give some tips for how they can start their work from home setup in their house, in their home. Any small designing tips you want to share with our audience?
Yes, see, working from home, the culture is again going to pick up pace in future also, because one might say that after this pandemic is done, there wouldn't be any culture for working from home. But on the contrary, I am very confident that this particular culture of working from home is going to pick up more pace in future, because more and more people, even though there be pandemic or no other health issues in the external world, but people do want to save up their time from traveling. They don't want to waste 2 to 3 hours in long traffic jams every day to and fro, and waste their precious time and precious working hours in tackling with the other hardships that they have to do. So working from home is again going to be a most important thing in the future. So in the from these days, whatever projects we are designing, we always ask our clients that what is your profession and what is your core interest area, whether working from home is really possible for you, or do you really need to be out there in the field or in front of your customer or their particular client to see to it that your job is getting done. So once a client tells us that no, we can do work from home, then we always see to it and we always suggest that why don't you have a small office area accommodated in your particular home itself. For example, when we did a particular project in Powai, the client had a spare bedroom in his particular project, in which that bedroom was supposed to be designed as a guest bedroom. But in that particular guest bedroom, we gave our client a particular office space in which he can put up his laptop and he can do video conferencing just like what we are doing right now. And in that particular background, we had designed a particular background for him, so that when he is speaking on video conferencing, the background looks like he is in a commercial space altogether. So we had that kind of lighting, we had that kind of background for him, we had that kind of blinds also. So that particular client had that particular, he had incorporated our design ideas in his lifestyle. And till date, he has told me that he is very happy with the kind of response that he is getting, because most of his clients always tell him that "Arey, tum aaj bhi office mein ho," whereas that is not the case. He is actually working from home, but that gives another professional look or professional approach to his entire, working methodology.
So, what is the importance of attending the minute details when it comes to execution? Like, obviously there are a lot of things to design in a flat or in an office. How you make sure that even the minute details are attended within the time frame and by that specific vendor as well?
See, a great project is always executed by a good team. If you have a very good team who is very experienced in this particular line and who has worked with you in past, and over again in different projects, they have delivered with you in a particular way and up to your satisfaction, then half of your job is done in that only. The rest of the part comes in the detailing. So a particular vendor, when you have interacted with him or if you have worked with him in multiple projects, he knows the kind of detailing that you are expected to deliver. He knows that what is acceptable and what is not acceptable on site. That what are the details that a particular architect would always look into, that which is non-compromisable. I mean, basically, there are certain things. For example, rose gold finish or electroplating that we talk about on a particular site. So we know that a particular level of finish or the particular amount of shine is always required in that particular piece of furniture. So it is very important to see to it that the specifications that are given to that particular vendor in a way that there is a presentation that is made for that vendor with all the sizes, reference image photographs, the drawings, and the kind of finish that we are looking at. So if all these things are available, readily available in a written format to that particular vendor from our office, it becomes very, very easy for that vendor to commit a particular date, time, and amount for the same product. And hence the documentation becomes very, very critical in such projects, in such complex projects. Seeing to it that the material finish, the specification is not compromised at all, and also what is expected from the material from the vendor is also known to him and in a very, very clear way. And always a written documentation is helpful
Always
in
helpful.
getting your work done.
Nowadays, people, as you in the previous part you said, they have a lot of exposure. They visit to foreign countries. They like something in terms of design, and as such, there are some themes. You have mastered a lot of themes in your projects, like Zen, Scandinavian theme, modern, traditional. So, how do you decide like which kind of theme will fit correctly and will really look out beautiful in what kind of culture? Is it more a customer centric suggestion or thought process, or do you suggest to your client that this kind of flat, this kind of theme will look better? How does it goes?
That is normally, I would say that the undertone of any particular project is to keep the space that is there very, very minimalistic. So when you say minimalistic, it means there is less of clutter in a particular room. The room is designed in such a way to cater to specific requirements of a specific set of people. So there is no point in cluttering up the room with multiple pieces of furniture and then seeing to it that the floor space is all covered. Nowadays, whatever flats our customers are buying, their flats are day by day becoming very, very small. The room sizes are getting very, very constrained. So in order to keep the space or the floor space as free as possible, we can always suggest, I mean, our first preference is always for the minimalistic theme.
Okay. Atit, with that, we always see different within a house or from one house to another. There is always interior designers or architect plays with different kind of shapes, round, oval, or maybe some zigzag shape or straight lines. So, is there any underlying principle to use those shapes, or is it a complete creative quotient which a designer or an architect practices in their design?
It is actually very subjective. What we normally focus into is the the quality of the finished surfaces. Basically, it is whether they are textured or glossy or matte. When it comes to shape, we normally keep that domain to ourselves, basically, to understand that what is the particular defining concept that we want to run around with in the entire home. So basically, concepts and shapes and all form a very integral part of the theme that we want to deliver to the client. So definitely the kind of shapes or kind of designs or kind of cuts that we want to use in that particular project, it depends on the kind of theme that we want to apply to that particular home. But obviously there can be few underlying principles. For example, if you are pursuing curves or oval shapes in your ceiling cutouts, the same can be used in your center tables below them. You cannot have your round sofa in your living room, obviously for obvious reasons, but certain shapes can be carried forward into different elements of your design. So accordingly, it gives a more personalized effect rather than giving a monotonous effect that this particular architect only delivers in rectangular shapes or in square shapes. That monotony has to be broken from project to project. We have to keep on experimenting and challenging ourselves to see to it that what is the best that we can deliver to a client.
I am sure not only the current builders but those who want to start their projects will be listening to this. With that, Asit, I am coming towards the last question of this episode. There are a lot of people in our audience who are aspiring to become a successful architect like you, but normally they get confused how to start, where to start. If you can share some of the success mantras, what have made you so successful in like today, so that will be really great to share with them your success mantras for the upcoming generation.
For the upcoming generation, we always tell when we were in college, we always used to tell our juniors also, who were like 1 year, 2 year junior to us, that you need to enjoy what you do. See, design can only come out of you because you are a creator in a particular project. There is no fixed method to this, to create a successful design or to make an aesthetic design. It has to come out of you, out of your sheer happiness for the project that you're doing or the sheer happiness for the work that you're doing. If you are not happy with the work that you're doing, you will not be able to create beautiful designs or good designs that other people would use and appreciate it. So that takes a lot of thinking or a lot of clarity in your own mind that this is actually the thing that I want to do, and I am really confident that whatever I'm designing is the best thing for my particular client, and he would appreciate the same hard work that we have put in. Also, at the same point of time, it is also necessary to be self-critical all the time, that whether or not what I'm doing is the best, or can I deliver much better than this, or is there anything that I can do more to do value addition to a particular project. So for all the future generations or the young generations that are to come, or they show their interest in architecture, a self-critical analysis of all your projects is very, very important, and also a sense of happiness and satisfaction should be there in you, so that you can do much better in new projects, and there should always be a sense to learn from your mistakes.
Wow, so that's really insightful.
That is how you can, that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So obviously, I believe these are really some great insights. So one is the happiness, finding the real happiness in what you're doing to master your art, and second is to be self-critic, to deliver,
Yes.
always trying to be doing the best out of you. So that's really great. We can talk in length, Atit. This field is really a very wide spectrum of things, and you being a master into this field, there are a lot of insight we can take. I'm sure we'll be getting you again and again on our show. And with that, thanks a lot for your time again, taking out time. And this stage and this platform is really lucky to have you on your show. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you so much, Sumit, and in many projects together, and in future also we'll collaborate in many other projects, and I'm sure we will be able to deliver satisfactory experiences to many more customers that come our way. And best of luck to your new venture that you have started, and great talking to you always, and wish you all the best.
Thank you.